Well, it's no secret this war in Ukraine has taken an unbelievable toll on the people there. Of course, the United States' position is that Russia is trying to illegally annex those sections of Ukraine where it has sent in its soldiers and taken control. And it's not just the Ukrainian people fighting for their freedom. We've had people from all over the world, including right here in our area, go. And one of them is Carl Larson. And Carl is so grateful you could join me there. Firstly, let me ask you just if you could tell me a little bit about your original Army service.
Sure, Ryan. So I served for 3 years in the U.S. Army as a combat engineer, 2001 to 2004. During that time, I was I was stationed in Germany and I was deployed to Iraq for a year. So it was a short but rather intense military experience. On the other hand, it was also 20 years ago, and since then I haven't really done much military stuff. I go to the shooting range now and then, and hiking and I guess disaster preparedness type things, but really didn't ever plan to take up arms again. This wasn't like some fantasy of mine or some thing that I was planning on doing in the future. It just it was something I really needed to do. I'm happy to speak more about that if you have more questions about that.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I was going to ask you, because as I understand, I'm 51. You're just a few years younger than me. I know I couldn't handle going over there and putting up a fight, not in my kind of shape. So, what was it really that motivated you? What was it that made you say, gee, I really need to go over there and get on the ground?
Well, I mean, people ask me why I went over there, and I'm always surprised. And I say, well, you asked me that question, and I'd ask you why didn't you go over there? Why don't you go over there, or why aren't you more involved? I mean, in my mind, it's pretty straightforward. They're fighting. Their fight is our fight. They're they're fighting anti-authoritarian, uh, fascist tendencies. You can call Putinism by many names, but really it's authoritarian fascism, and they're fighting it with tanks and bombs over there. But that's our fight too. We're fighting authoritarian tendencies in this country. Uh, you can go into the details of that. And we can talk more about the details of that. But I think a lot of people in the middle would agree that we're fighting the same fight here. But fortunately, we're fighting with votes and we're fighting with our voices and our time. But if we don't stop violent authoritarianism in Europe, in Ukraine, we could be fighting here with guns and bombs like they are over there. And so I really view that as our fight, and we can fight that sort of pro-fascism, authoritarianism now in Ukraine, or we can wait and fight it here violently. And I felt going over there was a moral imperative. I felt it was my nation's call to duty, really, and I really I really feel like 2022 in Ukraine is Czechoslovakia in 1938, and the world needs to decide: are we going to be Churchill or are we going to be Chamberlain? And I really felt like going over there and putting my body on the line, getting skin in the game, as it were, was a way to draw attention to the issue and make a personal, very strong commitment about which side I supported and how I want to be remembered by history. And so I'm proud of my time over there. I wish I could have stayed longer. I think about going back every day, but my wife's hid my passport, so hopefully she doesn't burn it. But I'm doing what I can to support from here. I really do feel like that's the most important thing happening in the world right now, and it's a moral imperative for everyone who cares about democracy all around the world to get involved.
Well, we'll talk about that support in a minute. And it's funny you mentioned your wife because the next thing I was going to ask is, what did your wife say when you told her, dear, I need to pick up and go over to Ukraine?
Boy, she was not happy. I'll be honest. Uh, I yeah, it was some really uncomfortable phone conversations, and there's a lot I can't share in an interview, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll just say that I'm a very, very lucky guy, and I talked to a lot of soldiers over there in the Legion who did not have a support network back home, or they were going to go through a divorce as soon as they got back, or a child custody battle, or uh, they just had wrecked their home lives by coming over. And I'm very fortunate that my wife is very understanding, uh, very good-hearted. She's a supporter of the Ukrainian cause, but not enough to happily see her husband go off to a war zone. So, we stayed in touch as much as I could. I was lucky in that my role required me to go into the city quite a bit. And so I had communications much more than most of the other guys. But even then, it was really tough. I'm not going to lie. It was really hard on her. I had a good support network. My friends and my family took her out for lunch and they'd help her. But it was really emotionally challenging for her, especially reading in the news every day, everything that was going on and knowing that I was right in the middle of it. And then we had just some obligations here stateside. We bought some property right before I went, and we needed remodeling on that, and it was a huge job. And if I'd known it was going to go the way it did, I probably wouldn't have gone, because it was just hellish for her to manage a day job and try to manage a construction crew and all the loans and the responsibilities. And that we were very lucky. Otherwise, things could have gone really badly. So to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't have gone if I'd known. But it all turned out okay, thank goodness. So I'm really, really lucky guy to have the woman I do.
Indeed. And I'm not exactly sure when did you go over there and how long did you stay?
Yeah, so I flew into Europe March 6th with two comrades. All three of us were planning to join the Legion. I'm the only one who ended up joining. So I was we were in Poland March 6th. We crossed the border into Ukraine March 9th. And then I spent we had a lot of adventures all over the country. And then I ended up working as a recruiter for or I guess you'd say an assistant to the official recruiters for 3 weeks in Yawarew, which is right by the Polish border. And then I joined the Legion after those 3 weeks, and I was in training for 5 weeks, and then which is a long time. It just turned out that way. And then we deployed to Kharkiv, and we were at the front east of Kharkiv. And it's not the front anymore, so I can tell you exactly where it was. It's Moldova, not the country, the town, the little tiny town, right on the Severodonetsk River. I got a lot of crazy memories from that area. But so I was in Ukraine, and then when I got out of the Legion, I stayed in Kiev for a few weeks, helping the logistics branch there in Kiev. But so I was in Ukraine entirely for 5.5 months. I was in the Legion for 4 months. I was at the front for 2 months.
Well, that is one hell of a journey, to say the least. When you first got actually into Ukraine and near the battle zone, was there anything that surprised you?
You're kidding, right? Everything surprised me. It was, I mean, so first of all, the thing is, this is not a normal war. This is very much a hybrid. It's a high intensity, a hybrid war. So it's the best way I could describe it is a weird mix of World War IV with all this drones and phones and satellite phones, and you can get real time. You can look on these websites online and get a really good idea where the Russians are actually from these websites that are public, which is crazy. And all this other high tech technology and really advanced warfighting processes. And then World War I. Like we're literally sitting in trenches getting artillery. We're literally the most important life-saving tool we have is a shovel. Literally, World War I style. We've dug a lot of trenches, a lot of bunkers, and we got artilleried a lot. We learned all the different types of artillery by sound, and most of the deaths were caused by artillery. So it's a very strange war. And then the logistical challenges. You know, the Ukrainian military was only, I believe, about 200,000 active soldiers when the war started back in February, and now it's over a million. So they just don't have enough stuff, and it's just, you know, we got a lot of stuff we got issued was really high quality. The rucksacks they gave us, or not rucksacks, excuse me, the duffel bags they gave us, the uniforms they gave us, very high quality. Really liked it, but like you couldn't get a headlamp or a wristwatch or a multi tool. These things were good. These were incredibly valuable. You know, basically, like we got really nice leather gloves for doing you know, hard work, but you couldn't get cold weather gloves anywhere, and you couldn't get a sweater. You know, guys were really hoping, you know, you had to go buy sweaters. So the logistical challenges were just enormous. I'm working on that now, but that was surprising to me. The communication, it's very, you know, it's a war where you're out in the middle of this nowheresville, but if you know what you're doing, you can actually have your phone work. And I would use this to I would climb out on top of roofs and hold my phone in the air until I could get signal and send messages. Hey, we need a generator. Hey, we need tell this guy that he needs to move his troops over here. Tell that we saw a drone in this vicinity, blah, blah, blah. And other guys would do the same thing and send pictures over Instagram. You know, so, or they'd literally use Tinder from the war zone, and they'd come back to the command post or to the trench, and they'd be like, "Yo, bro, I gotta swipe, I got a date or whatever when we go back here, you know. So, and can you translate this? She's saying something, I don't know what." So it's a very unusual war. It was not at all like my first war, I will say.
It sounds like, and I'm sure there was no Instagram and Tinder going on in Iraq either. So that sounds like definitely a new experience for you. This is a hard question to ask because I know what you were doing is incredibly difficult, not just physically but emotionally. Is there anything that you've taken away from that experience that you feel like it will stick with you for the rest of your life?
Well, yeah, there's a lot that's going to stick with me. You know, I'm actually going to write a book about my experience over there. The Being in a unit, being in the International Legion for the Defense of Ukraine, being in the Legion, you know, we were short of supplies, we were short of leadership, we were short of everything, but we were not short of morale. It was really, really incredibly heartening and one of the highest privileges of my life to be in a unit with other men, almost all men, a few gals, who were so united in purpose and really were there. The vast majority, there was a few war tourists, but the vast majority were there really to do the right thing for humanity. And you know, it was enough to make me want to cry sometimes, because these guys, there was no cowardice in that entire unit. There was no fear. I mean, you know, there was concern about some of the orders we were given, but you know, those guys were there to do a really important job, and they knew it. And every one of us was, you know, we weren't happy about the idea, but we were prepared to die if need be, and quite a few of us did die. And I saw that up close and personal. But you know, being part of a unit of guys who you know, realized what was at stake and what they were fighting for was really, really probably one of the highest, most important experiences of my life. You know, even when I was in Iraq the first time, we were just dumb Joes, right? We didn't think about the politics. it was just a job to do when we were in Iraq. And then even before I came back from Iraq, even then, I'm pretty politically aware, and I was reading the newspapers, and I'm like, oh man, did we really do the right thing by coming here? Is this really good for Iraq? Because that country was starting to have some real problems even before I came back. We were all told that, oh, inside every Iraqi is a little American waiting to pop out. And in the beginning, when we were in the Shia areas of southern Iraq, they were pretty happy. They were pretty happy about us getting rid of Saddam. But then later, when we were in the Sunni areas up north, they were not happy. And we saw in person that war had a lot of moral ambiguity, a lot of gray, a lot of, oh, should we really have done this, right? So I won't say I'm ashamed of my time in Iraq. I'm not. I feel like we did a good job there, but or my unit did a good job there. We did what we were told to do. But is it really, my place in history? No. It's kind of a morally ambiguous action. But in Ukraine, I mean, history is going to judge everybody who cares about democracy by what they've done to help Ukraine in 2022. And I feel like I have a pretty good answer for that, and every man in that unit has a pretty good answer for that. So I was very very I don't know the term. I was very heartened by the fact that I was able to serve with such good men on such an important cause. So that's really what I take home from my experience with the International Legion.
Carl, you just used the term I have to confess I've never heard before, and it kind of bothered me a little bit. War tourists. Are there actually people who have come over there as tourists because they want to see the war?
The whole country is full of war tourists. You're kidding, right? There's I would estimate over 10,000 people who are just kind of wandering around Ukraine trying to help as refugee extract specialists, or they want to do medical security, and they want to pose for Instagram with their AK, and it's just there's so many people over there trying to dip their toe in and get some cool selfies and be able to tell some cool stories, as opposed to joining the Legion and doing the really hard work. I mean, the Legion's not fun. People, I'm going to say directly, if anybody's thinking about joining the Legion and they think it's going to be like Hollywood or like a video game, it ain't. It's going to suck. It's really going to suck. You're going to have to do some really horrible, awful, dirty, nasty stuff that you're not going to enjoy. And you're going to have to deal with some really unpleasant people and some really unfortunate orders. And you're going to have to put up with not having a lot of creature comforts that in other circumstances you would say are essential. But in those circumstances, you will find out are actually optional. Things like bathrooms or heating or electrical power for long stretches of period, or cell service, or showers, or normal environment like that. But yeah, getting back to your question, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are in Ukraine there for the wrong reasons, be that excitement or bragging rights or whatever. In the beginning, the Legion accepted people who did not have military experience and who were maybe had some personal problems. I met a lot of these people saw them with my own eyes, and I was horrified, and that's why me and those other two guys didn't join the Legion right as soon as we crossed the border, because we met a bunch of these people and we were horrified. And so then, therefore, I went and I worked helping the recruitment wing of the Legion screen these people better. And I think after a few weeks, we did manage to improve the process to the point where I felt comfortable actually joining the Legion. But yeah, unfortunately, there are in Ukraine a lot of war tourists, and there are a certain number of them in the Legion. I mean, you have to be a little crazy to go and join a foreign country's military in a war zone where you know you're going to be shipped right to the front. You have to be a little crazy, I'll say. So there's a few. We're all a little crazy, but there's a few of us that are a lot crazy. Let's leave it at that.
I think that's a fair point. Now, you have touched on the Legion a little bit a couple of times now, but I want you to tell me about them. Tell me, what they're doing and the role they're playing.
Sure. So the International Legion for the Defense of Ukraine, the ILDU, was set up in late February by an order of President Zelensky, and it's much like the French Foreign Legion, except they're still ironing out the details about whether or not you can get Ukrainian citizenship after you serve for a certain period of time. We heard that. We were all excited until we found out we'd have to give up our other citizenship because they don't do dual citizenship, and then we weren't quite as excited. But anyway, it's a program. It's a regular military unit in the Ukrainian armed forces. The armed forces of Ukraine. It's called the ZSEU, Cyrillic for the little 3 and then the C and the Y. ZSEU stands for Armed Forces of Ukraine, and the Legion is a specific unit within the ZSEU. Has the military designation, and you're a uniform member of the Ukrainian military. The uniform I'm wearing this is like their underclothing, but you wear the standard uniform, you get the standard weapons, everything's standard except the language of the Legion is English. And so we had a lot of people who wanted to join who didn't speak enough English, and they were denied, or we tried to find a different unit they could join. A lot of really good Polish fighters who didn't speak enough English, or a lot of Latinos. But yeah, the official language is English. The requirements are you have to speak English. You have to have prior military experience, not combat experience, but military experience. And you have to be physically fit. And now they have a few tests. I think they make you walk around the recruitment center with a big backpack and do squats and a few other things like that. And then I believe it's 18 to 50, I think, but you can get a waiver for older than 50 if you're in good shape. So, yeah, the Legion, I can't say exactly how many people are in it, but let's say more than 100, less than 1,000, significantly more than 100. I shouldn't say that. That's quite a few more than 100. There's several battalions. If you're going to actually join the Legion, if somebody's going to join, then talk to me and I'll give you a lot more information about the different battalions, what's good about one and what's bad about the other. And then it's just a NATO standard unit structure. So, well, I should say there's 2 sides of the Legion. There's a Special Forces side, and that side is organized in squads, Special Forces squads. And then the other side is, which I don't have any experience with that side. I know a few people over there, but I don't. I was never in that. The other side is what's called the battalions, and that is organized in NATO units. And so you've got battalion, company, platoons, squads, same as in any NATO army. And the commanders, company level and above, are Ukrainian. The commanders below, so platoon commanders, squad leaders, are international typically. Yeah, I mean, they're deployed, at the front, over by Kharkiv, southeast of Kharkiv. I can't say exactly where. I know exactly where, but I can't say. But you can imagine, right? I mean, there's a rapidly moving front there. They're pushing southeast and doing really good work. They're desperate for vehicles right now because it's a fast moving conflict. They're at the stage where they're pushing really hard into the Russian not underbelly, the behind the lines, behind the Russian lines. And so they need 4x4s desperately. So we're buying 4x4s as fast as we can in Poland and Romania, rattle can painting them, fixing them, and sending them to the front. What else can I tell you about the Legion? If people watching this are interested in joining the Legion, you can contact me. I'll warn you, if you don't fit those criteria, military service, physically fit, speak English, the age isn't as important, but also there's other items that I added to that. Financially fit, very important. We all spent a lot more money than we thought we would. and then psychologically ready for the experience. No Rambos. You got to be a team player. You got to have your head in the game. You got to like spend your free time preparing. This is war. Don't be playing video games. Instead, study your Ukrainian, study your light infantry skills. If you don't meet the basic criteria, I'm going to tell you shouldn't go, and I'm not going to help you. But if you meet that basic criteria, we actually do have a little group here in Seattle where we've got 3 guys who are going, and we're training them up, and I'm trying to help them stay alive over there. And we do have some resources to help guys who are looking at being recruited. And I have the recruiters' phone numbers. I work for them for 3 weeks, so I can help facilitate that process. But so anything else about the Legion? Man, I could talk about the Legion for a week, as you can tell. But it's a standard military unit over in Ukraine. When you join, you get the choice of if you have combat experience, you can go that special forces route that I mentioned. If you don't, or if you don't want to do that, and I suggest you don't do that for some good reasons, then you'd go the route that I went, which is just you're trained as a Ukrainian soldier. They have a training base in the middle of the country, and you train for minimum 2 weeks, sometimes a lot longer. I was trained for 5 weeks. Each week they kept telling us, "Oh, you go next week, you deploy next week," and nope, 5 weeks. So the training was actually pretty good. I'd go into detail, but we'd be here all week. You'll have to buy my book. But anyway, so and then you get trained, and then you get sent to the front as a platoon or as a company. And by the time you'd be sent to the front will probably be somewhere else. But that's basically the process. Does that answer your question about the Legion, Ryan?
It doesn't. It does indeed, and you are right. You sounds like you could probably talk about it all day long.
Yep.
But safe to say, if anybody is interested in helping, they can give you a call. Um, the other thing I want to make sure to ask you about, and that is the support that you are trying to gather here. What do they need, and what can people here do to help?
Well, there's a lot that people here can do to help. A lot, actually. We're trying to mobilize people all over the world to help Ukraine. We're actually setting up this group called Ukraine Defense Support. We're building the website right now. We've, I think, done a pretty good job building this here in Seattle, but we want to export the model to. We've got the nucleus of a group in Dublin, in Montreal, in Florida, New York, upstate New York, Norway. So we want to activate people all around the world to build a team and form a group and do what we've done here in Seattle. So the 3 main goals of this group that we could use people's help with are, number 1, fundraising, because war is waste, in the immortal words of General Patton, and you got to have money. But so fundraising, and then also lobbying, so pushing our government, the United States government, to be more supportive of Ukraine. And if you've watched the news recently, especially this letter that our own representative Pramila Jayapal released, you'll see that sort of lobbying is kind of important. It's actually really important. And if you know about these elections in Italy and the incoming Italian government and what effect that might have upon EU support for Ukraine, you know that's kind of important. So anyway, so the lobbying is important. And then the last item is changing public opinion and really trying to break through the ignorance and apathy most Americans have about Ukraine. Sadly, most Americans can't find Ukraine on the map and don't care about this conflict, and they don't think it affects them. They just see the impact on gas prices, and they think that this is something they don't want to be involved in. We got big oceans on either side of us, right? We think we don't have to care what happens in Europe. And you can see from history what happens when Americans disengage and don't care what happens in Europe. Not good things. So better to be involved early is history's answer to that sentiment of, oh, I'm just not going to care what happens across the ocean. So we're trying to break through the wall of disengagement that the average American has. We have a couple good ideas for how to do that, but speaking to the press like I'm doing right now is an obvious part of it. So those three things, so fundraising, lobbying, and raising awareness. And so what people can do is, I mean, the easiest thing, if you don't have time, the easiest thing to do is donate some money. And so you can go to the website veteransfightingforukraine.org and click the donate button. That'll take you to our spot fund link. And we have raised $49,000 in the last 3 weeks. It's not shown on the spot fund because we had to switch spot funds for one thing, and for another thing, a lot of people donate directly. But we've raised $49,000, and I'm happy to share pictures with you. We just delivered about $8,000 worth of cold weather equipment, socks, sweaters, and then we delivered a lot of multi-tools, wristwatches, headlamps, and we've delivered 4x4s in the last week and a half. We got 2 more in Kiev that are getting fixed, and one's getting painted. We're going to deliver those to the front. And then we got 3 more in Poland that are in the process of getting prepped in Poland, and then we got to drive them across. We're picking up another one at the border here day after tomorrow. So we've got a really good logistical process. We've got eyes on the pipeline all the way from Poland all the way to the front, and we get pictures of the soldiers at the front holding the items that we've given them. And I would point out also that we're one of the few, Veterans Fighting for Ukraine is one of the few nonprofits in America that is specifically focused on supplying Ukraine's military. There's a lot of nonprofits that deal with humanitarian and medical support, and that's great. That's important. I'm not going to say that's not. It is really important. I've seen the effect of it firsthand. But it's not going to shorten the war. It's not going to defend Ukrainian democracy. It's not going to make sure that the Ukrainians get their country back, which is in all of our interest. And so supporting their military really is. And like I said earlier, it's not just the Legion. The Legion, we didn't have anywhere near the equipment we needed. And the regular ZCU units don't either. It's just there's not enough equipment. It's not a rich country. And the military is just enormous. And you hear about this $18 billion we gave them. Well, I never saw any of that. I never saw I never saw a single Humvee in the country. And I never saw any HIMARS. We had a huge unit, we had like a 40-kilometer front. And we had Russians sneaking through all the time, killing guys. We never saw a HIMAR. We never even saw a tank or BMP on our side. We saw lots of the Russian ones on the other side of the river that were shooting and killing us. But we never got, I mean, we did get Danish sleeping bags, and I think our plate carriers were American, so that was nice, but we never got any gear. I mean, it all went to the special forces units or the main ZCU units. So donating to buy equipment is very important. And if somebody wants to get pictures for their money that they donate, if they're going to donate $500 or more, yeah, we'll buy equipment in Poland and we'll get it to the front with your money, and we'll send you pictures. You can we're setting up an adopt a soldier program. It's a little tricky with military security OPSEC rules, but we're setting it up. You can actually talk and work directly with a soldier. He's got to sign a thing saying he's not going to give you information he shouldn't. But yeah, we're all about connecting donors with the right channels to make them know that their money's being well spent. And we think we're an incredibly lean organization. Nobody takes salaries. We're very low admin costs. We get stuff directly from Poland to the front. We almost don't send anything from the U.S. unless somebody's hand carrying it, like they're flying over. We got a volunteer in Ukraine, in Kiev right now. She's from Seattle. She's a great gal. I probably shouldn't say her name without her permission, but great gal. She's Ukrainian American. She flew over there 2 weeks ago, and she hand carried a bunch of stuff, which is great. But normally we don't send anything from America. We buy it all in Europe so we can get it to the front, boom, as soon as possible. Because shipping stuff from America is too slow and too expensive, and we prefer to buy things. We got a really good network in Poland and Romania, Germany and England that they just buy cheap stuff, try to negotiate to get the most discount, get it to the front as quick as possible. We got a little tiny warehouse. It's like a little apartment in Kiev, and it's just stuffed to the gills. I got pictures. It's really stuffed to the gills with equipment, and we've got regular shipments back and forth to Kharkiv, to battalion headquarters, and we've got a really good pipeline to the front. So if people want to help, there's two ways. You can either obviously you can donate money, and that's great, appreciate it. And if you want to get those pictures or get more involved in the donation process, just reach out to me personally. And then on the other side, if you want to volunteer, so if you want to volunteer towards those three goals, right? Fundraising, lobbying, and raising awareness. So the group, Ukraine Defense Support, meets every Thursday at European Foods in Aurora, 130th in Aurora. And we work and make progress towards those three goals. I can send more information. We're on Meetup. The website's not built yet, but we're on Meetup. We're on Facebook. I shouldn't say that because there's another group that has the same name on Facebook. We found out. So don't go to Facebook. You'll go to the wrong group. But go to Meetup and you can see our events. And then Twitter and Instagram. We've got a whole social media team who's working on that. But we can definitely use more help. We need help running events. We need help reaching out to reporters, and we need help with the social media. We need help buying equipment in Europe. We got a list of equipment we need to buy, and it's just a lot of Googling and using Google Translate for, oh, what is this in Polish? Oh, what is this in German? Okay. Growing the group is important. Liaisoning with the Irish members and Norwegian members, and building the groups, these chapters all over the country. There's a ton of ways to help. So if people want to get involved, just reach out and come to a meeting. You can Zoom in as well if you can't make it in person, but we'll find a way that you can help for sure.
Oh, that's great. And then when it's ready, the website will be veteransfightingforukraine.org. Excellent. Carl Larson.
No, I'm sorry. That website is up. That is the American.
Okay, all right, very good.
The website that we're building, so that's the American nonprofit. That's a separate group. When the website that we're building is UkraineDefenseSupport.org. That website is for the small groups that are organizing all around the world.
Okay, very good. Carl Larson, thanks for taking the time. Really, really appreciate it.
For sure. Thank you, Ryan.